So for anybody that doesn't know me, I'm Snow. I am a co-guild leader of Boz with Richard and Ellie. I also play Chrono a lot of the time with Boo. You probably see me zerging mostly these days, although I was a roamer for 4 years. I do have quite a bit of experience on Mesmer. I have played Mesmer since beta. Like I mentioned, mostly as a roamer, but these last 2 years or so, I've been mostly playing this build, the Zerg support Chrono build. So we're just going to go through everything from introductory skills to more advanced skills later on. So just to begin with, we'll make sure everybody's on the correct build. We're running, if you open your Heroes tab, full Minstrels.
User in your channel started recording.
Full Minstrels gear. So you want to make sure all your armor is Minstrels and your weapons. So right now we're running Sword Shield in your first set, and then Focus in your offhand set. You want to put a Sigil of Concentration on the sword. I have a Sigil of Frenzy on the shield, and another Sigil of Frenzy on the Focus. Now the sigil choice doesn't matter as much, as long as you have the Sigil of Concentration on the sword. The shield and the focus sigils are entirely up to you. Just, any support sigil within reason makes sense. I know some people use Sigil of Benevolence. People use many different sigils, so that's entirely up to you. On the gear, on the armor, it is the Rune of Durability. However, you can also use the Water Rune, Monk Rune. Some people use Rune of the Revenant. Once again, that's up to you. Just any support rune would work there. It's mostly, this is mostly a support role. Your stats are not going to be super influencing. They're just there to keep you alive mainly. Because most of your benefit to the Zerg is going to come through your utility skills. Now your accessories are going to be all minstrels as well. That's pretty straightforward. So for them, we're going to go through the role, and I sort of just mentioned it. It's a lot of people think they try to squeeze in a little bit of damage. They try to squeeze in, a lot of gimmicky stuff. They put in some condition damage, some power. Your role in the Zerg is not as a healer. That's the firebrand. It's not there to do damage. That's your DPS, your Ellies, your Revenants, your warriors. So what you're there is for the tools that the Zerg might need, whether it's portals, whether it's invis, pulls, CCs. So we're going to go in order here. So first of all, your number one role to the Zerg is going to be Boons, right? So people call this Boon slave or Boon chrono. And the reason is that a lot of the time, or for most of this game's history, this is the number one Boon build. Although I have seen Firebrands stack it up quite a bit. So if you guys want to click on me real fast, I'll show you. So look at my bar now. I know I have a lot of Mesmers around, so I have lots of Boons on me. But watch my bar in a second here. All right, so if you look at the bar, it pretty much has, I think it should be every Boon in the game. Okay, Protection just came on as well, and Aegis. But you see, it outputs pretty much every Boon you could possibly give to a Zerg. And the way you do that through most of this game, it was through your Phantasms and your Signet of Inspiration. So that's your utility slot. So the way that you output these boons is if you go over to your utility skills and you mouse over your Signet of Inspiration, you'll notice it says it grants you these boons every few seconds. But the way you output it is you physically use the skill, just like a Signet skill. So just briefly before we move on from here, let's just make sure everybody's on the same page. I know some people came in late. The skills you want in your bar are Signet of Ether for the heal, and we'll go over these in a second. Mick, Signet of Inspiration, Illusion of Life, and Gravity. So what you just saw me do there a second ago was I used my Mimic, and then I used my Signet of Inspiration in order to use it multiple times. The more times you use it, the longer the boons will last because you're outputting them multiple times in a row. So from there, and we'll go back to boons, the second role of the Mesmer is CCs. And we'll go through all of those. So there's a few CCs that you output. You need to know when to put them, and you need to use them wisely because some of them have longer cooldown. So CC, like even though you're not doing damage, CCs is your #1 Zerg killing method, and it'll kill quite a bit of people, I'll tell you. Like you pull people off walls, it's confirmed death pretty much, 85 to 90% of the time. So we'll go through one by one. You go to your sword 3. Well, okay, here you can't really tell. So okay, open up your heroes tab, go over to build, it's the second tab down, and you want to, oh, it still doesn't show you. Well, that sucks. I'll just tell you, the sword 3 skill is a clone. So what it does is you target an enemy, you hit sword 3, a clone pops up. And then on top of that, a secondary skill shows up once you use it the first time. So the clone pops up at the enemy. The second time you press the skill, it teleports you to that location, and it immobes the enemies around that opponent. So, if you want to move forward, like you'll notice there's no blink on my bar or anything like that. That's what you do. You want to sit in the front line of your Zerg. You want to target somebody that's on the enemy lines right in front of you. You use your sword 3 twice, and it immobes their front line to get our forces ready to bomb them. The second CC is right next to it. It's your focus 4. And you'll notice that it's a temporal wall. It gives focus to the team. I'll put it right here in front of us. So see, you walk through it, gives your team swiftness. It's a pretty known skill. Commanders will call out for it. And the second time you use it, it's a pull. And it pulls 5 people. This is how you pull people off walls. This is how you pull people in front of your Zerg. So even though you're not physically doing damage, just the fact you're CCing these guys, these enemies, freaks them the hell out. Okay, they pretty much spaz out and they're dead within seconds.
User in your channel is recording.
The best place to put it is inside of our own bubbles. So if you know the warriors in your guild, if you can trust them, you have to sort of understand where the bubbles are going to be, and you want to throw it there, and then when you see that bubble pop up, you pull them in, right? So this is probably the greatest CC you have as a Mesmer. You want to keep it, you'll notice it's fairly short cooldown, 25 seconds, but with Alacrity, it's a lot less. Also, because we have the Frenzy runes, if you guys remember, every time you kill an enemy, the cooldown of it becomes lower. So you're constantly pulling. You want to use the skill a lot. Like this will buy you kills, pretty much every time. The last CC is the Gravity Well, which is your elite skill. Now, Gravity Well, everybody knows it. You want to put it also in the warrior bubbles, and it is an AoE pull float CC. People that get Gravity Well freak out, and especially if they're in bubbles, because then they can't reapply their stab. They're pretty much confirmed dead. Now, Gravity Well is a longer cooldown than the other two. You'll notice it's a 90-second cooldown. So you want to always use it first in Continuum if you can. So watch what I'm about to do. So I have Gravity Well off cooldown. See that? I open Continuum, I use it once, and I'll go over this thing later. And then I have it off cooldown again, and I use it a second time. 2 Gravity Wells from 1 chrono. The more chronos you have, the more Gravity Wells. And this is key. You pretty much get 3 to 5 kills from this every time. If you use it correctly, of course.
So do you Continuum split and then do your Grav Well? And then the second one?
That's situational based. So we'll talk about Continuum split. When do you use it, when do you don't? Most of the time you should use it in Continuum just because it's a 90-second cooldown and it's a pretty crucial skill. However, certain situations require you to save Continuum split because Continuum split's 105-second cooldown, right? For Illusion of Life situations. But we'll go over that later. So that's your CCs. It's your Sword 3. It's your Focus 4. It's your Gravity Well. Oh, and there's one more I forgot, which, it's lesser used, but it's good nonetheless. If you go to your Shield 5, it is a wave forward, and it's a stun, not a daze. Dazes stop your opponent from using skills. Stuns mean your opponents stop in their tracks. So if you're out front with your commander, and you immobe them with a Sword 3 and follow up with a Shield 5, you not only immobe all the enemies in their front line, you're also stopping them right in their tracks. They can't dodge or anything. And they can't use their skills, and they're pretty much confirmed dead at that point. So just to recap for the CC section, you want to use your Sword 3 to leap in. Now within reason, you don't want to suicide into the enemy Zerg. And then from there you either do a Focus 4 or a Shield 5, depending which set you're on. So that's the CCs. major role as a chrono is to output CCs. Third one is invis, right? So right now we're on the gravity well. So quickly we're going to swap over to the invis set. So like let's say your Zerg breaks into a keep, right? Like a tier 3 keep, and there's no way they can cap it. They got to go resupply for inner or whatever. This is what you're doing, all right? It's a pretty quick swap because you got to make, I mean, a lot of time it's you know, it's on you to swap fast and get to a hiding spot. So this is what you do. You swap your gravity well for mass invis, right? We're going to swap back to the gravity well set in a second, don't worry. Mass invis, you want to swap your Signet of Inspiration for blink, and you want to swap your illusion of life to decoy. All right, it's an invis, right? And then from there, so you swapped 3 skills. You swapped to blink, decoy, and mass invis. Open up your heroes tab, and in chaos line, the last skill in chaos line, you want to swap to middle. That increases your stealth duration. So from there, this is the combo, right? So watch again. I'll do this again in the advanced tactics, but watch how much invis you can stack on this. All right, well, I slightly messed it up there, but you see it's still quite a few seconds. So I have 11 seconds on me, and I didn't mimic the invis, right? So it's usually quite a bit longer. And through that, if you have 2 chronos even, you can stack permanent invis. If, you know, we'll do it again later. I'll show you guys the longest you can do it. And then you just find your hiding spot, you stick in there. So far we're at 3 roles for Mesmer. You have your boons, your CCs, your invis, right? And that's invis in the context of keep hiding. Although invis, of course, you could also invis your Zerg when you have an engage, or you could do a veil if it's like a GVG scenario. And your last role as Mesmer, which I think is the most important role as Mesmer, is Illusion of Life. Now, Illusion of Life is a skill that people have not really adopted until recently. I've been using it for years, and I've been pushing people to use it for years, and it's like extremely useful. It's a huge comeback mechanic. So for those of you that don't know what Illusion of Life is, go into your utility skills. I'm swapping back, so swap your blink back to Signet of Inspiration, your decoy to Illusion of Life, and your mass invis to Gravity Well again. And just mouse over Illusion of Life real fast. Just give it a quick read. It gives allies at the target location the ability to get up from downstate, blah, 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 for 15 seconds, right? So your Zerg engages another Zerg, and 3 of your dummies go down on the first push. They're sitting there right in the enemy Zerg, so you don't want your guys going in to res them, because then they'll get bombed on too. What you do is you use your Mimic, right? Then you follow up with an Illusion of Life. You don't want to use Illusion of Life by itself, because then you can only use it once. If you use Mimic, you can use it twice right there. And we'll go over how you can use it 5 times, but that's later. So Illusion of Life right on the dummies. They're back up for 15 seconds. They get back into your group, and you can res them up when they go down in 15 seconds. Or even better, if you read the tooltip again, if they tap an enemy before they went down, or even while they went down, or after they got back up from Illusion of Life, as long as they tapped an enemy that died within those 15 seconds, then they don't go down, right? So either you res them up at the end of the 15 seconds, they tapped an enemy that died, or the last scenario, and this is like for the pro guilds, all right? This is like the greatest of the great.
Clutch barrier.
The scourges in your party can give you enough barrier to where you don't go down after the 15-second period.
You have to pop that right when they're about to drop.
Right, exactly. So it's very huge. So if you can lose a lot of people, and you'll notice each Illusion of Life is 3 people, right? You use it multiple times in a row. You could potentially have, like 12 people in your squad Illusion of Life up after, potentially have been dead on the ground. So it's a huge comeback mechanic. And we'll go back to Illusion of Life later in the advanced section. There's a lot of tricks. But for now, just be familiar with it, and just like the fact that you use it when your group 1 pushes. So from there, we're going to go to the weapon skills, and we sort of already went through them, but I want to go more into depth. So go into your sword shield set. Your sword 1 is it's a chain, you'll notice.
User
and
disconnected from
for
your
those
channel.
of you that do PvE raids, you'll know that your sword 1 is a boon strip. So here we don't have any enemies to attack, obviously, so it won't go past the first phase. but if you keep using it on an enemy, you'll notice that the first skill changes appearance. And when it's like a brain with like a line going through it appearance, it strips boons. So if you have like a warrior coming into your stack, what you want to do is you want to pop that sword 3 emote we spoke about earlier. Then you want to 1/1/1 them, strips off their resistance, their stab. They're pretty much confirmed dead, right? So you want to always 1/1/1/1. You know, you can sword 3 into the enemy Zerg 1/1/1/1. You strip all their boons. I mean, and your scourges will be doing it as well. Your revenants will be doing it as well. So there'll be a lot of boon strip coming from your Zerg. Better for you. Your
User
sword
left
2
your
skill
channel.
is a block. So it's a blur, 1 second, evade all attacks. It also does damage, but of course we're not here for the damage. We're here to, you know, support our guild. So you want to stay alive and just block. So this is huge actually, because you'll notice there are no stun breaks in this build. 0 stun breaks. You rely 100% on your guardians for stun breaks. So it's huge for positioning. You want to position properly. And in the case that you didn't position properly, you want to pop your sword 2, which is like, you'll notice is the same icon as distortion, right? So it evades all attacks, Condi application, etc. Sword 3, we sort of already discussed. It's a double skill. Oh, now I can see both of the. So yeah, the first skill is spawns a clone. The second one teleports you forward to mobs. So shield 4 is a block, okay, which is huge. You can walk through enemy Zergs, block all attacks, or when an enemy Zerg runs over your Zerg, you use your shield 4, and it's a long block, right? And if they block, if you do block an attack during that period, you'll see how long it lasts. It doubles it, so you can use it a second time. And of course, your shield 5 gives you a few seconds of alacrity, and it's a stun for enemies in front of you. So that's the sword shield set. Swap over to your focus. Now, focus got hit pretty hard in the recent patch because you'll see that focus 5 is a phantasm. So that used to be the combo for boons with Signet of Inspriration and then that phantasm 5 from the focus. Phantasms don't give you Signet of Inspiration anymore. They don't give you boons. So I don't really use it as much, although it protects you from projectiles or whatever. So I think it has minor damage mitigation when it comes to range. So you pop that. Your focus 4, of course, is that important pull. And that's mostly everything when it comes to weapons. So the most important thing for weapons, just remember, is the CCs from focus 4 and shield 5. However, if you go to your sigils, open up your hero menu, and look at your sword, right? Boons you apply last 33% longer when you swap to a weapon set while in combat. So this is what you want to do. You want to get into combat while you're on your focus set, on your shield set. It doesn't really matter at the beginning of a fight, right? Soon as you take damage, and this is like better before you're engaged, right? Or early on in the fight, you get into combat, you swap weapons. And I don't know if you guys know how Sigil of Concentration works. When you swap weapons, when you have that sigil on, it'll put an hourglass symbol over your utility bar. And for, 7 seconds? 7 seconds. All your boons will last 33% longer. So you'll see a hourglass over your utility bar. And that's when you use your Signet of Inspiration. So weapon swap early on in the engage while you're in combat. Look for that hourglass symbol, Signet of Inspiration.
Do you want to pop all of your F-Series utilities, all of your Shatters, before you do Inspiration?
Right. So that's something I was going to go over later on, but for sure, yeah. So the way you get the most out of your Signet of Inspiration is if you have more boons on your bar. And we'll quickly go over this. If you go to your Chaos line, your very last trait, you want to put bottom, which is called Bountiful Disillusionment. And you'll notice that each of your Shatters gives you a different boon. So the first one gives you, second one is Vigor, Fury, Regen, and then your Continuum, of course, gives you Resistance, and they all give you Stab.
User disconnected from your channel.
So what you're doing is you're applying these boons to yourself and to allies, because you notice the Bountiful Disillusionment also affects allies around you. And then when you have a bunch of boons on your bar, you do the Signet of Inspiration combo I showed you earlier, and we'll go over later in the second half of this. So that's the weapon skills. We're going to go over the utility skills real fast. So I include the healing skill in this. Healing skill, we have Signet of the Ether. And Signet of the Ether is constantly healing you passively. Every time you spawn a clone. So that's your shield, your shield 4, your focus 5, your sword 3. But that's you don't even really have to pay attention
User
to
in
that
your
part.
channel timed out.
It's a passive heal. Now your active is pretty huge. If you mouse over it and you have minstrel's gear on, you'll notice it's almost an
User in your
8k
channel
heal.
disconnected from your channel.
So if you mouse over your healing skill real fast, you'll see that it also gives you distortion. That's from the last trait of the inspiration line, the bottom one. All signet traits give you distortion. So along with the shield 4, the sword 2, the distortion on your shatter bar, all the signets, the signet of inspiration and signet of the ether, are also giving you distortion. So these are your blocks, right? So even though you don't have a stun break, you have a lot of blocks. You can really tank up. So the combo, if you're taking a lot of damage, is your signet. You can use your distortion. You can go into your shield 4. If you're still taking a lot of damage, you pop your signet of the ether. Oh, and here's the other bonus of it. So use your shield 4 real fast, put it on full cooldown, and then use your healing skill. You'll notice that the cooldown of your shield 4 is now half of what it used to be, which is huge. I mean, if you really want to tank for a while, you go into your shield 4, then you pop your healing skill, and then you can use it again fairly quickly soon after, especially with alacrity. Same thing with Signet of Inspiration, gives you an additional second of distortion. But we're going to go in order here. So that was your healing skill. Your second is Mimic. Mimic lets you use another one of your utility skills an additional time. So if you use your Mimic and then Illusion of Life, you can use it twice. Mimic and Signet of Inspiration, you can use it twice. It's pretty big because Signet of Inspiration gives boons, and then Illusion of Life, keeps your Zerg alive, which is 2 of your 4 roles as Mesmer. 4 being, Boons, CC, and Viz, and Illusion of Life. So doubling them means you're twice as effective for your guild. We just went over Signet of Inspiration. It's a boon thing. Illusion of Life, we'll go over that, in more detail later. And then lastly is your Gravwell, of course, which is a CC that we already discussed. So that's your utility skills. We're going to go over the traits now. We sort of already went through the Chaos line and Inspiration, but we're going to go over them in more detail. So top one, Chaos line. We have bottom, top, bottom for that one. And the most important ones from this, I'll just quickly go over. The first one you'll see lowers the cooldown of your manipulation. So that's your Mimic and your Illusion of Life, just means they're lower cooldown. Your second one is just basically a placeholder one because the other 2 are pretty meh. It is the top one, which whenever you get CC'd, the person that CC'd you get CC'd. It's whatever. And the last one, Bountiful Disillusionment, is the important one. It's whenever you use your Shatters, it gives you and your friends around you those boons. In Inspiration line, this is what Boon Chrono is mostly about. It is a lot about healing. So when you look at your first skill, when you use a healing skill, you're clearing yourself and nearby allies. The second one there, well, okay, I was talking about the minor. So the first major is a feedback. So whenever you're healing one of your allies, a big pink dome pops up. So it reflects projectiles, which is huge because enemies are going to be trying to cleave your downs. And getting a reflect on the down bodies is big. And you'll notice it also increases the speed of your revives. So you Illusion of Life somebody up, they walk to you, you res them up. It's a very fast, easy process. Next minor is whenever you grant yourself distortion, everybody around you gets Aegis. So if you guys remember, the Shatter gives you distortion, the Signets give you distortion. You're outputting a lot of Aegis, and I think that goes well with a lot of the Guardian stuff. So whenever the Guardians get Aegis and then it pops for them, it heals them a little bit. So
that's the illusion line.
Yeah, Inspiration line, Inspiration.
Oh, okay, Inspiration.
Yeah. So the second major there is Restorative Illusions. It's the middle one. Whenever you use a Shatter skill, you heal yourself, and you remove a condition, right? So that's your Shatter skills are your Condi clears. You have 4 Condi clears in this, plus your healing skill. So 5 in total. It also gives you some heals, which is nice. You'll notice even with no clones, in those 3 circles above your Shatters, if you have no clones,
from your channel.
it heals you for quite a bit, 1,300. So, and these Shatters, you can look at them, are pretty low cooldown. It's like 12 seconds, 25 seconds. So you're getting a lot of heals coming in, a lot of easy access to Condi clears. Third minor is Healing Prism. When healing yourself, people around you are also healed. When you pop your healing food, you don't have to do it now. It's actually quite a bit. You gain healing power based off your power, which is 13%. It's we're not doing power stuff, but that healing prism, if you check your healing log when you're playing with this, you'll notice outputs quite a bit of heals for your group. And the last one in inspiration line is a new skill that was added in this most latest patch, and that's the one that's not updated in the FWD Discord channel, is the bird inscriptions. So what that one does is it gives you the distortion when you use your signets, and it gives you those additional advantages. So for your healing signet, it increases the amount of healing you get from it, and your Signet of Inspiration now affects 10 people. Right? So before it used to be 5 people, and then you had your Phantasm and you had your Signet of Inspiration, so you could use it twice. They got rid of the Phantasm, so now they updated it to 10 people, and you get it just from your Signet of Inspiration, which is pretty nice. And additionally, in this most recent patch, they increased the duration of alacrity and quickness and resistance you get from Signet of Inspiration, which is also great. Lastly, in Chronomancer line, in the minor just gives you access to all of it. The first major, interrupting a foe, slows them and gives you alacrity. So what that goes well with is your stuns or your pulls or your CCs. You CC an enemy and they go straight into a slow, right? So their skills move slower, they're not able to move as quickly, so they're stuck in that grab wall for quite a bit of time. Plus you have the alacrity to move on to your next skill very quickly. Gain alacrity for each shatter. So you spam one of your shatter skills, boom, alacrity. And you always want to have alacrity on, right? The more skills you're using, the more effective you are for your Zerg. If you're just standing around, just thinking with your whatever in your hand, then you're not doing very much. So always pop that alacrity. Always pump out skills, be useful for your team. The middle major skill, alacrity applied to you is stronger, but it is less duration.
User disconnected
so that
from
just
your
means
channel.
that your alacrity, the ticking on your cooldown is much faster. So even though it doesn't last on you as long, mathematically it gives you that skill back faster. That's all it means. The third minor is you move 25% faster. You don't have to worry about the other ones. It just decreases the cripple, chilled, and immobilize on you. And the last one, the Grandmaster, is you gain quickness for each clone you shatter. So if you look at your shatter skills, right, you're getting the boon from the Chaos line. You're getting the alacrity and the quickness from the Chronomancer line. So these shatters are doing a lot for you. Plus you're healing yourself and you're con-declaring yourself from the inspiration line. So your shatters are always needing to be used. If they're off cooldown, use them, except for the distortion one. That one you pretty much want to save for a block, especially if you get CC'd. Remember, there's no stun breaks here. If you get CC'd, you call out for a stun break or you get out fast. So that's your overview of traits.
User disconnected from your channel.
I'll open it real fast here for questions. I know we covered a lot, and I don't expect you guys to have gotten all that, but hopefully it introduced some stuff, and then you guys can watch the recording. So I'll open it real fast for questions. Soap, I guess you can. We'll just record this also. We'll record this also. Is there any questions over anything we've covered so far?
Can I shatter over you, Snow?
I got one.
You can shatter me whenever. Yeah.
So to maximize our boons and our uptime on alacrity and even our continuum rift, what are we using to generate clones? Just sword 3 and wand 5, or focus 5 rather?
Right. So what he's mentioning is when you see those 3 circles above your shatters, the more circles you have filled through clone generation, the longer your continuum split will last. So if you guys mouse over your continuum split, it lasts 1.5 seconds. That increases by 1 second for every illusion you have filled there. If you're a beginning Mesmer, I would say to not pop continuum split unless you have one of those circles filled, just to give you enough time to cast the skill and get it down. Once you get more advanced, and we'll cover this in the second half, you'll notice that Gravity Well has a 1 second cooldown, and I was able to fit 2 of those. So what you want to do is you want to start casting a skill, like you're just mentioning boons, right? So you start casting your Signet of Inspiration, and at the last second, like last millisecond before it casts, you open that continuum split, and then you can use, Mimic, so you can fit in more stuff. So watch, I'm about to use it. So see, I fit in not only a Signet of Inspiration, but I fit in a Signet of Inspiration plus a Mimic, which is 3/4 of a second, plus an additional 1/4 of a second within that time frame by pre-casting. And at the last millisecond of that cast, right before you think it's going to go on cooldown, you open that Continuum split and you can fit in a lot of stuff. But we'll go over that in the second half. I mean, for now, work on getting that Sword 3 clone out. So you see that first circle filled. Then use your Continuum split. It'll be easier for you to fit more stuff in, like a Gravity Well and a Signet of Inspiration, or whatever you need. So okay, so for this next half, we're going to be going over more advanced stuff. So we just went over the roles of the Mesmer. So that's your boons, your CCs, your invis, your illusion of life. We went over the gear, the weapon skills, utility skills, the traits, and now we're going to go over the shatters more so, just because the shatters are really important. So the shatters, like we just mentioned, are your boon generation, and your most important shatter there is the Continuum split. Now your Continuum split can be used in 3 major ways. We just sort of discussed the boon one. So you pop it, you start casting your Signet of Inspiration, and it's a 3/4 second cooldown. So you have to be like musically talented, right? You have to be like a 1, 2, 3, and then you open it the last second, Continuum split. So let's just practice that real fast. So start casting your Signet of Inspiration, and at the last second, when you think it's going to go on cooldown, you pop open your Continuum split, and then check your bar. Is your Signet of Inspiration on cooldown? If it is, then you missed it. But if it's not on cooldown, and you can use it again, then you did it correctly. And that's something to practice, right? So try practicing stuff. So your Mimic, so stuff of different cooldowns. You'll notice your Illusion of Life's a 1 1/4 second cooldown. Although it'll be less, because you'll notice your Continuum gives you quickness. So everything you cast in your Continuum is going to be fast. So just, practice, casting these different things. And at the last moment, opening your Continuum and then checking if they're on cooldown. And if they're not, then great success. So that's Continuum split. So you can use that for boons. So through Signet of Inspiration, you can use it for stealth. So you want to use your Mass Invis twice. You start casting your Mass Invis. You open Continuum split, and then boom, you can use it again once Continuum split ends. And your Illusion of Life. So first, let's start with boons, right? So we're gonna go. So the combo here, and it used to be you could fit in five of these with the Phantasm skill. But now they got rid of the Phantasm skill, you can fit in 3. So the way you do that, and we're not going to be able to do it here because there's no enemies, you need to have the 1 circle filled. If not, then what
There's a guy to your right that you can use.
Who's that? Yeah, it's fine. I'll just describe it so people at home can know what's going on. What you want to do is you want to start casting your Signet of Inspiration, and then at the last second, you open Continuum split and you hit Mimic, right? So let's practice that. Is your Mimic on cooldown? If not, then you succeeded. Then Signet of Inspiration, then Mimic, and Signet of Inspiration again. Right? So the combo there is Signet of Inspiration, and then at the last second of it is Continuum split, Mimic, Continuum split ends, you do Signet of Inspiration, Mimic again, Signet of Inspiration, Signet of Inspiration. Right? So you're getting a few Signet of Inspirations out there is what I'm saying. So the longer you do it, the more boons you'll have, etc. More boons you're outputting all the time. So that's for boons. And you guys can watch this recording again and train with this stuff. It takes some practice. The second one is stealth. So we're going to move back to the set we were at before. So change your Gravity Well to Mass Invis. Change your Illusion of Life to Decoy. You can change your Signet of Inspiration to Signet of Midnight, which is a 2-second stealth. And this is just for pure stacking stealth. And then you want to go into your hero panel to your traits and chaos line and swap the last one to middle, which increases your stealth duration. Now this is for if you're in a keep and you're trying to stack it as long as possible. And then if you guys have this, I know I didn't mention this in the announcement, you want to swap your focus to a torch, which is an additional, 4 seconds? Yeah, 4.5 seconds of stealth. So just before we do this combo, I'll go over it with you. So you'll notice
what we're swapping again.
Yeah. So elite skill, Mass Invis. On your utility bar, you want Mimic, Signet of Midnight, Decoy. On your offhand, you want Torch. And in the chaos line, for the last one, you want middle. So when your commander or whoever tells you hide in a keep, that's what you want to do. So you're swapping to all these invis skills. You're finding a nice, comfy corner, and you start stacking. So you'll notice a lot of these invis are instant cast, which means instant cast is what you love, right? Because in Continuum Split, you can use them all at once, and then you can fit them all in. So you'll notice this for Torch, instant cast, 4.5 seconds stealth. Signet of Midnight, instant cast, 3 seconds of stealth. Decoy, instant cast, 4.5
User
seconds of
left
stealth.
your channel.
And the elite skill is a 7.5 second stealth with a 1 3/4 second cooldown or cast time. So this is what you want to do. And I sort of mentioned this a second ago. You want to start casting your mass invis, and you sort of got to feel it out. And at the last possible moment, open your Continuum Split and pop your Torch 4, your Signet of Midnight, and your Decoy. If you can get all those in, that's perfect. Let's just practice that. And then now that we're in Viz, this is what you do. Mimic, Decoy, Decoy again, Signet of Midnight, and then another Mass Invis. And then check your bar, okay? Now we all have over a minute of stealth, right? It's a lot of Invis. So just to recap it, you start casting your Mass Invis, last possible moment, open Continuum Split, cast all the instant cast stealth. As soon as Continuum Split ends, you use your Mimic, Decoy, Decoy again, and you just pop all your Invis for a second time. And that gets you about 45 seconds. It gets you quite a bit. If you have a second Mesmer, if it's 2 Mesmers hiding, it can get permanently, right? I believe if you do perfect rotation between the Continuous Split coming off cooldown again, you'll have about 4 or 5 seconds when you're out of stealth before you can redo that whole rotation and then get another 45 seconds. 2 Mesmers, of course, easily covers the full time. So that's for stealth. We're going to swap back, and you guys can reference this video later if you need. So you want to swap your Signet of Midnight back to Signet of Inspiration, your Decoy to Illusion of Life, your Mass Invis to Gravity Well, your Torch to Focus, and your Chaos line, the very last one, back to bottom. So as you'll see, the Invis set and the normal set requires a little bit of swapping. So you got to get used to doing it like quickly and automatically when you go from normal mode to hiding mode. All right, so we're back on our normal set. It should be Mimic, Signet of Inspiration, Illusion of Life, and Gravity Well on everybody's bar. And we're going to go through the last thing for Continuum Split. So Continuum Split had 3 things. Remember, Boons, Invis, and this is Illusion of Life. Now, Illusion of Life can be used multiple times through Mimic, but you can make it even more times than that using Continuum Split, just like the other things. Now, this is the most important use of it, especially for a comeback mechanic, because during a fight, people go down. A lot of, I don't know, depending on your guildies, a lot of them might not be paying attention to res your own people. So you're in charge of keeping everybody alive. And if a lot of people are going down, you've got to keep an eye on that squad panel there. And if somebody goes down, you got to figure out where they are, and you get that Illusion of Life down quickly. Now, within reason, right? If you can res somebody, that's even better, like directly res them. That way they don't go down in 15 seconds. But if they're in an enemy Zerg, and resing is just going to kill more of your guys, that's when you really want to use it. And it's 1200 range, you'll notice. 1200 range and 3 targets. So 3 people get bombed in an enemy bubble. Easy, you got it. So this is the combo, right? And we'll just pretend like I'm down, all right? So I'm down over here. This is what you want to do. This is sort of like the Invis thing. You want to place the Illusion of Life, the circle under me. So I'm in down state right here. And it's a 1 1/4 second cooldown or cast time. So you got to feel it out. At the last moment when you feel like it's going to cast into full cooldown, you open that Continuum Split and you hit Mimic, right? So start casting it. So I'll cast it as well. And then Mimic. And then you can use it another 2 times there. So 1, and then you Mimic again, and you use it again. So that way you can combo. I'm giving you guys the hard mode version, right? You'll notice you have 0 out of 3 circles filled above your shatter bar, which means your Continuum Split is very short, but it's better if you practice with Continuum Split short, and then it'll feel really long when you have one of those circles filled. If you feel like it's too short for you, what you want to do is you want to pop your sword 3 on like a tower wall or an ambient creature or an enemy nearby, then open the Continuum Split, and then it'll be 1 second longer. You'll have more time. But yeah, you can just do back-to-back-to-back-to-back Illusion of Lives that way. And that's sort of within your judgment. So if you think Continuum Split will be used best in that scenario for Illusion of Life, that's what you use it for. If you think your Continuum Split will be used best in that scenario for a Gravity Well, then you use it for that. It's like Continuum Split is mostly, it's your tool, it's for your benefit. So if you feel like this is a fight where a lot of people are going to be going down, it's an attrition fight, you want to save your Continuum Split for those back-to-back-to-back-to-back Illusion of Lives, right? So that's something to practice. So Illusion of Life, last possible moment, Continuum Split, Mimic, Continuum Split ends, so nothing on your bar is on cooldown. You use your, your Illusion of Life again, your Mimic again, your Illusion of Life, your Illusion of Life, right? And all this time you're getting Alacrity, so everything is coming off cooldown. Now you don't want to use your Illusion of Life on full cooldown, so that very last one I spoke about, it's not ideal. However, if a crucial person in your squad, like a commander or a spellbreaker, or a major damage dealer is in downstate, and you don't have any mimics, you don't have your Continuum Split, and you have to put your Signet of Inspiration, or sorry, your Illusion of Life on full cooldown, then you definitely should. Just don't just hold on to it. But if you do use it on full cooldown, keep in mind that you won't be able to use it for another 60 seconds, or like with Alacrity, closer to 45, 40 seconds. So just within your judgment there. So just to review that section, the Shatters are all boons, so you use them first, then your Signet of Inspiration to output the most boons. Your Shatters are also Condi Clears, they're also heals, and they're also Alacrity and Quickness. So your stuff's on cooldown, you start popping those Shatters, they'll be off cooldown pretty soon. Second thing we covered in this section is Continuum Split. So you want to start casting stuff like Mass Invis, Gravity Well, Illusion of Life, Signet of Inspiration, anything, and at the last possible moment, you pop that Continuum Split. Now here I'll show you a fun trick. This is not something that you use in a Zerg fight, but this is what you do to get to a Zerg fight. So if you want to get ahead quickly, swap your Signet of Inspiration to a Blink. Now we don't use Blink. Blink is for scrubs. All right, it's a stun break and it moves forward, but it doesn't help your team, so we don't use it. But this is like if you're at spawn and you see those OJs in that keep and you're trying to get there quickly to pull the lever, you start casting Mimic. Last possible second, you open Continuum Split. So let's try that here. So Mimic into Continuum Split. Blink, Mimic, Blink, and Blink. So you see you can blink multiple times that way. And we don't have any enemies here, but if we did, the ideal thing there is that you can get a blink in and you use your sword 3 to go a little bit more forward, right? So the way sword 3 works, and I'll just mention this here, but you don't have to memorize this or anything. If you see an enemy, like if you're coming out of like your spawn on like a blue corner or a green corner of a map, and you have those like bears or mosquitoes or whatever flying around, you can fit in a blink and Mimic and just sword 3 teleport forward within that Continuum Split, and then it doesn't bring you back to your initial location when it ends, because that sword 3 resets your position, right? So Continuum Split, if you've tried it now, when you open it and when you close it, it brings you back to the same spot. However, the sword 3 passes that. So you can move a lot forward, right? That's an additional blink that you're adding to your equation. So here, we'll go over it again. It's Mimic into Continuum Split. Continuum Split ends, then you do Blink, Mimic, Blink, Mimic, Blink. So you can move forward quite a few units that way very quickly. Yeah, that's pretty much it for Continuum Split tricks. I'll open it up to questions again. Does anybody have any questions over anything that we just covered?
Could you use Continuum Split in conjunction with Mimic and Signet of Inspiration to double boon output?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So what we just mentioned in the previous section is the combo for boon output is you start casting your Signet of Inspiration. The last possible moment of it is you open your Continuum Split, and then you fit a Mimic in there. So you fit
that's
in
what I thought.
a Signet of Inspiration and a Mimic within that Continuum Split. And then you'll notice that there's a Mimic logo above your utility bar. Then it means you can use your Signet of Inspiration again. It'll not be on cooldown. Mimic, Signet of Inspiration, Mimic, The combination of Mimic and Continuum Split lets you use skills like 5 times in a row. So it's really nice. And spam Shatters during Split, of course. Yeah, for those additional Alacrity and Quickness procs.
Yeah.
All right, is there anything else? All right, so I'll just quickly review everything that we've done so far, and we'll call it here. I know it's 11 p.m. for a lot of you guys. We start out with gear. So for gear, we're in full Minstrel's gear, durability runes, Signet of Concentration on the sword. Your offhand is, entirely up to you. Just any support sigil works. I prefer Frenzy because it gets your cooldowns off faster, and the faster it gets those cooldowns off, the faster you can use Illusion of Life or whatever. So full Minstrel's gear. Your traits
User disconnected from your
are
channel.
Chaos line, Inspiration line, Chronomancer line. Bottom, top, bottom, top, middle, bottom, top, bottom, middle. Your utility skills are Signet of the Ether, Mimic, Signet of Inspiration, Illusion of Life, and Gravity Well. And I believe that's everything. Oh, and then we, of course, covered CCs. So that's your Focus 4, which is a pull. Pulls 5 people. Very important. The most important thing to take away from today is be in that front line. Pull enemies in as much as you can. Pull enemies off walls. Pull everybody off. Give everybody that quick tug. And the Gravity Well, and of course your Shield 5 is very important. And the Sword 3 Mob. Lots of CCs for everybody. That's everything from me.